Kip's Corner. Welcome back, and if you're new, welcome. Thanks for joining me. For those of you who've been following me for a little while anyway, you might know that I kind of like to have a mixed media project in the works or that I'm playing with. A couple of them that I've got videos on, but anyway, I thought I would start off this year with sort of a fairly big undertaking for a mixed media project. I saw this article in, I think it was Somerset Studio. It was either Somerset Studio or Art Journaling, but I think it was Somerset Studio, where they had used a puzzle, and it was birds, completely different puzzle than what I'm going to do, and just put them sort of on matte paper and created this just a really adorable piece. And that got me thinking it was a really cool idea to use a puzzle. And I have a bunch of cradled art boards that I'm going to work with, and I'm going to create little mixed media pieces. I don't know yet if I'm going to do encaustics on them. I might not. But I thought I'd bring you along for the ride and just tell you where I am so far on the project and show you the next step. So basically what I did was I picked out a puzzle, and I really liked the idea of doing birds, but this would work with just anything, puzzle about wildlife or botanical puzzle would be absolutely gorgeous. And this is what my puzzle looked like. This printout actually came with the puzzle, and it's got 17 different birds on it. And so the first step was, of course, to put the puzzle together, which was quite the challenge because it was a really hard puzzle. And I don't do puzzles all the time. It'd been a while since I put one together, but I succeeded, and took a little over a week, but I did get it done, and it was gorgeous. And then I started deconstructing it and pulling it apart. And what I did is I went into each bird and I extracted the pieces that kept the bird pretty much intact, maybe a little bit of extra around the edges, and then went in and glued the pieces all together. So these are all glued. And I've just got these flat pieces of all the different birds that are on this puzzle. That were, I think, 17 of them all together. So this is what they look like put together, all completely different shapes and sizes. I had these stacked by size, and so they get bigger and bigger as we go through. All different colors and just really fun. I love birds, by the way. So he's even getting bigger, and you get the idea. And some of these are, let's see if we get down to the bottom. I think the cardinal might be the biggest one. Pretty good size. So that's what I've done so far. Basically, I found a puzzle that I really liked. I loved the colors in this. This speaks to me, to my style, the palette that I enjoy working with the most. And so this puzzle was perfect for me. Put it together, and then extracted out the individual birds and glued the pieces together. I just used art glitter glue and literally sat down and glued all of these pieces together so that I had just these flat pieces. So that's where I am so far. The next step was for me to figure out what I wanted to put them on. In the article, I think she just used like a cardstock, but I want these to be more, they're going to be heavy. Because I'm going to be using rusted pieces and metal pieces and lots of texture in the background. And so I wanted to put them on, and again, like I said, I might use encaustic, and so I wanted to put them on some boards. So what I did is I went through, pulled the boards I already had. I buy cradled wood boards in packs and in all different sizes, and so I kind of always have some here handy to play with. This is 4x4, this is 6x6, and you can kind of see different sizes. Not all of them are squares. So what I did is I sat down with the boards I had on hand, and I just went through each one of the birds and decided which board size worked best. And I was looking for sizes that gave me some extra space, some negative space here, where I can build the layers and the metal pieces and create, like clusters and things like that. And so this little guy is the smallest one, so I only have one 4x4. And I made a list of what I had versus what I needed, and I go all the way up. I've got a stack here. So I got 4x4, 6x6. There's some 5x7s. Not sure what size that is, but 8x10-ish. And then I have some 8x8s. And like the bigger guy here, he's gonna go on an 8x8. And so what I'm going to do is create 17 different bird boards. And then I'll put them in my Etsy shop, I'm sure. I may keep a couple of them, you know, like 3 grouped together, might look kind of cool on a wall, but that's the idea. And then for each board and for each bird, I'm going to use the same neutral palette in the background with regard to color, but I'm going to use different textures on the board and different groupings and metals, fabric, just all sorts of really fun things. Some of the birds I might raise up a little bit. Maybe I'll do that to all of them. I don't know yet. So the next steps, because I want to use some texture mediums that dry best on their own, like crackle paste is a good example, I am going to next take each of these boards and add some texture to them. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to each of these puzzle pieces, and I think I'm going to maybe paint, maybe pastels. Not sure yet, but there's a little piece I didn't get quite flat down. That's okay. But what I'm going to do is darken the edge of each one of these birds, probably with a paint. Might use a black gesso and paint these edges. So those are the next steps. Once the bird's edges are done, then I will spray each of these with a sealant. This is just paper, and I don't know if you've played much with puzzle pieces, but they do, you know, if this gets much moisture on it, which I'm not necessarily planning on, but it might start to pull up, you know, on the edges. So I will completely seal these. Edging them with the paint will help, and then I'll do a spray sealant. So those are the next steps. Texture on the background, finishing off the bird puzzle pieces and sealing them, and then I will go back to each of the boards once they're completely dry, and I'll put a coat of white gesso on top of all of them. Then I'll add color, and then I'll start creating each of the pieces. So that's it's a fairly big undertaking. It's not something I'm going to do, excuse me for reaching. It's not something I'm going to do quickly or overnight. So this is just the first video, and yeah, so there'll be more to come. So let's get started. The texture paste I've got out that right now I'm thinking I'll use, this is Paper Texture. All of these are from Prima Marketing, from Finnabar. Art Extravaganza, Extravagance. Oh, can't talk. And I've got Paper Texture, I've got white crackle, and I have sand, white sand texture. So all 3 of these will work together, I think. I won't put all 3 on all the boards. The bigger boards I will do more to. The smaller boards I will just do a little bit to. This is my small list, and I only have one this size. And so I'm not going to do a lot to it. So yeah, let's get started. Board. Throughout the process, I also introduced, I forgot that I had these actually. I did a couple with some flaky texture from Izink from Seth Apter, and some of his crackle texture. I won't remember, of course, which ones I used this crackle on versus the other crackle, but I I have two different crackles, and I think they'll react probably slightly differently. So this is the last board, and I am going to, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and use some of my paper texture paste on this one. This is probably one of my favorite textures, and you know, now I'm running low. 17 boards takes a lot. You do not have to do the way I'm doing it. If you're kind of playing along here, you don't have to do any more than, you know, one. And I'm just gonna brush this on. I usually go do the two sides first, or corners, and then kind of come into the middle, because the middle is where the bird will be sitting, or not dead center middle, but you know, in that general area. And so I don't really have to really get a ton of texture right there in the middle. Some of them I have more on there than I do others. I'm going to go ahead and add some crackle on top of this as well. I've had both good success and bad success with sort of mixing these textures, so we'll see what happens. And I just, you know, especially with these plastic spatulas, it's really easy just to sort of skip over all of it kind of at the end, if you will. And so that's what I'm doing, is just going one more pass over to just get some different texture. And so the idea is, sorry, my dog's playing with a toy. The idea is just that there's texture there. I'm not as overly concerned about where it is. I am trying to keep the sides clear and the edges clear of too much texture. And I can always sand that down later if I need to too. So that's it. Next up, I'll be back to, I probably won't record sealing the puzzle pieces because it's spray. It'll be done outside. Hopefully I'll have some decent weather here pretty soon where I can do it outside. And I'm going to let these dry really well. Put a coat of white gesso over top of them. So I've got white gesso on all of the exposed pieces of the board, including the sides. And then I'll come back when I'm starting to play with some color here on the back. So more to come on this project. It's going to be a fun one. It's already a fun one. Even though I got frustrated with putting the puzzle pieces together, it is a fun project. The puzzle was really hard, surprisingly so. So I will be back with more on this project. And until then, thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.